The bruises on her wrist looked like fingerprints burned into dark skin. 5 distinct marks, purple-black against Zara's rich brown complexion, visible only because the scalding coffee had made her flinch and her sleeve had betrayed her secret. Kang Min-jae didn't do shock. He'd seen too much, done worse, built an empire in Seoul's shadows where surprise was a liability that got you killed. But watching his new housekeeper, this Nigerian woman who'd been in his penthouse exactly 9 days, try to hide evidence that someone had grabbed her hard enough to leave DNA in the bruising, that made something cold and surgical click into place behind his ribcage. She was already moving away from his desk, muttering apologies in that British Nigerian accent that shouldn't fascinate him as much as it did. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Kong. I'll get something to clean this immediately. I don't know what." "Stop." One word. Quiet as a blade sliding from its sheath. Zara Okonkwo froze mid-step, her entire body going rigid in a way that told Min-jae everything he needed to know about who'd touched her. That wasn't the freeze of an employee worried about her job. That was the freeze of a woman who'd learned that stillness sometimes meant survival. His jaw tightened. "Come here." "Mr. Kong, I really should." "I wasn't asking, Miss Okonkwo." He leaned back in his leather chair, the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Gangnam penthouse framing him against Seoul's glittering skyline. 43 stories up, where the air was thin and the view cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. "And we both know I don't repeat myself." She turned slowly, and for the first time since she'd started working for him, she met his eyes directly. Fear lived in those dark brown depths, yes, but also something else. Calculation. Intelligence. The kind of sharp awareness that recognized danger when it wore a 3-piece Tom Ford suit and spoke in calm, measured tones. Smart woman. She crossed back to his desk, each step deliberate, controlled. Her uniform, the simple black dress and white apron that his housekeeping agency required, was immaculate despite the coffee incident. Her natural hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Professional. Proper. Everything about her screamed careful boundaries and practiced invisibility. Everything except those bruises. "Show me your other wrist." Min-jae's voice had dropped lower, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with seduction, and everything to do with violence barely leashed. "And before you tell me you fell or bumped into something, understand that I've put bruises on enough people to know exactly what I'm looking at." Her throat worked as she swallowed. "This isn't your concern, Mr. Kong. You're in my home." He stood, and the movement was predatory enough that she took an instinctive step back. He noticed. Cataloged it. "You work for me. That makes everything about you my concern. Now show me, or I'll come around this desk and check myself." The threat hung between them, sharp as broken glass. They both knew he meant it. Men like Min-jae, men who'd clawed their way up from nothing, who'd been the bastard son nobody wanted, who'd built an empire running Seoul's most exclusive underground operations, didn't make empty threats. Zara's hands trembled as she pushed up both sleeves. The left wrist matched the right. Perfect handprint bruises, dark and vicious against her skin. Whoever had grabbed her had done it recently, maybe yesterday, judging by the colors. And they'd done it with enough force to make Min-jae's vision tint red at the edges. Who? The question came out conversational. Pleasant, even. The tone he used right before someone stopped breathing. "Mr. Kong. I'm going to ask you one more time, Miss Okonkwo. And then I'm going to start making phone calls, pulling surveillance footage, and tracking down every person who's been within arm's reach of you since you arrived in Seoul. So you can tell me now, or you can tell me after I've already found out and decided to handle it my way." He paused, let his gaze travel from the bruises to her face. "Your choice. But choose quickly, because my patience has limits and someone just used all of them up." She looked at him for a long moment, and he watched her weighing options. Saw her brain working through scenarios, calculating costs. She was terrified. He could see it in the tension of her shoulders, the rapid pulse at her throat. But she wasn't stupid. Stupid people didn't survive long in his world, and something told him Zara Okonkwo was a survivor. "It was an accident," she said finally, and the lie was so transparent it was almost insulting. "Someone got aggressive at the club where I work my second job. Nothing I couldn't handle." "What club?" She hesitated. "Lux. In Itaewon." Min-jae knew Lux. He knew every club, every bar, every backroom operation in Seoul. Lux was owned by Park Jae-sung, a mid-level operator who fancied himself a player but was really just a parasite feeding off foreign workers who couldn't report to the police without risking deportation. The kind of man who thought the law didn't apply to him because he had a few cops on his payroll and a cousin in the immigration office. The kind of man Min Jae had been planning to deal with eventually. Eventually just became today. "You work for me now," Min Jae said quietly. "Full-time. Double whatever Lux was paying you. You don't go back there." "Mr. Kong, I can't just." "You can and you will." He pulled out his phone, typed a quick message to Yunesio, his head of security. 3 words, *Lux. Park Jae-sung. Tonight, consider it a condition of your continued employment here. You work for me, you're under my protection. That means nobody touches you. Nobody scares you. And anyone who already did. He looked up from his phone, and his smile was terrible to witness. They're about to learn why people in this city know better than to damage what's mine. I'm not yours. The words came out sharp, defiant. Some of that fire he'd sensed in her finally breaking through the carefully constructed subservience. I'm your employee. There's a difference. Not anymore. Min Jae moved around the desk, closing the distance between them with deliberate slowness. He stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact, close enough that she could feel the weight of his presence like a physical thing. "The moment I saw those bruises, Miss Okonkwo, the rules changed. You just don't know it yet. You can't just," she cut herself off, something flickering across her face. "Realization, maybe. Or resignation. Why? Why do you care?" It was a good question. One Min Jae had been asking himself since the moment she'd walked into his penthouse 9 days ago for her first shift, carrying herself like royalty despite the housekeeping uniform. Since he'd noticed the way she observed everything with sharp intelligence, the way she moved through his space, like she was cataloging exits and vulnerabilities. Since he'd caught himself listening for her footsteps in the morning, found himself engineering reasons to be in whatever room she was cleaning. He shouldn't care. She was staff. He had rules about that. Lines that kept his world orderly and his conscience manageable in a business where both were luxuries most men couldn't afford. But those bruises had erased every line he'd ever drawn. "Because," he said, his voice dropping to something almost gentle, almost human, "in the 9 days you've worked here, you've reorganized my kitchen in a way that actually makes sense. You've learned my coffee preferences without asking. And you've never once looked at me the way people in the city usually do, like I'm something dangerous they need to appease." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed his thumb across the edge of one bruise. She trembled but didn't retreat. "And because when I look at these marks, all I can think about is how satisfying it's going to be to put matching ones on whoever did this. Except theirs won't fade." Before we continue this story and discover what Min Jae does to the man who hurt Zara, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring these stories to life, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when Seoul's most dangerous man decides someone has crossed a line they can't uncross. Zara's breath caught, and Min Jae watched the moment his words landed. Watched her processing the threat wrapped in protection, the promise wrapped in violence. She should run. Smart women ran from men like him, men who solved problems with blood and money, who operated in shadows that swallowed people whole. But she didn't move. "You don't understand," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Park Jae-sung isn't just some club owner. He has connections. Immigration connections. 1 call and my work visa. Your work visa is sponsored by my company as of right now." Min Jae pulled his phone back out, fingers moving across the screen. "My lawyer is already drafting the paperwork. By tomorrow morning, you'll be legally employed by Kong Enterprises, not some housekeeping agency. Your visa will be untouchable." He glanced up. "Park's connections are insects compared to mine. He just doesn't know it yet." "Why?" The question came out raw, confused. "You don't even know me. I've been here 9 days. I'm just someone who cleans your house and makes your coffee. Why would you risk?" "Because I've spent 15 years being invisible to people who should have seen me." The confession came out before he could stop it, sharp-edged with old wounds. "My father's legitimate family pretended I didn't exist. The Shin conglomerate, one of the biggest chaebols in Korea, and I was the dirty secret they buried. My mother was Ethiopian, which made me even less acceptable to their perfect Korean legacy. So I learned what it feels like to be treated as disposable. He moved closer, and this time she did step back, her spine hitting the edge of his desk. Not trapped, but close enough that she had to acknowledge the intensity of his focus. And I decided, Min-jae continued, his voice quiet and absolutely lethal, that when I built my own empire, nobody under my protection would ever feel that way again. You work for me now, Zara. That means you're mine to protect. And I protect what's mine with everything I have. The use of her first name seemed to shake something loose in her. Her eyes went wide, lips parting. Mr. Kong. Min-jae. He said it softly. When it's just us, you call me Min-jae. Because we both know this stopped being a normal employer-employee relationship the moment I saw those bruises and decided whoever put them there was already dead. They just don't know it yet. She stared at him, and he could see her mind working. Could see her trying to reconcile the man standing in front of her, dangerous, possessive, promising violence like other men promised flowers, with whatever version of him she'd constructed in her head over the past 9 days. You're insane, she breathed. Probably. He smiled, and it wasn't a nice expression. But I'm also extremely effective. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me exactly what happened at Lux. Every detail. Who grabbed you, when, what they said, what they wanted. And then you're going to stay here while I handle it. Handle it how? However I need to. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Min-jae straightened, putting some distance between them because standing this close was making him want to do things that would terrify her more than the bruises already did. I don't explain my methods, Sarah. I execute them. But I can promise you this. By tomorrow morning, Park Jae-sung will understand that touching you was the worst mistake of his worthless life. She wrapped her arms around herself, a protective gesture that made his jaw tighten. He'll know it was me. He'll know I told someone. He said. She cut herself off, fear flashing across her face. What did he say? That foreign workers who caused problems had ways of disappearing. That soul was full of people who'd never be missed. Her voice cracked. He said my family back in Lagos would never even know what happened to me. The words hit Min-jae like physical blows. He'd heard threats like that before, had probably made similar ones in his early days before he'd refined his approach. But hearing them directed at Zara, this woman who made his coffee exactly right and hummed Nigerian songs while she cleaned his already spotless kitchen, made something dark and primal rear up inside him. Tell me exactly what happened. His voice had gone flat, emotionless. The tone his people knew meant someone was about to have a very bad night. Start from the beginning. Zara looked at him for a long moment, then seemed to make a decision. She sank into one of his office chairs, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. I've been working at Lux for 3 months. Night shifts, Thursday through Saturday, after my day shifts with the housekeeping agency. I needed the extra money to send home to my family. My father's medical bills. She stopped, shook her head. That doesn't matter. What matters is that Park noticed me about a month ago. Started asking questions. Where I was from, what my visa status was, whether I had family in Seoul. Red flags, Min-jae muttered. I know that now. Her laugh was bitter. But I thought he was just being friendly. Some of the other girls said he sometimes helped with visa issues, that he had connections. I was stupid. You were trusting. There's a difference. Is there? She met his eyes. Because in my experience, trust gets you hurt. Min-jae pulled over another chair, sat down so they were at eye level. A deliberate choice to make this less intimidating, even though everything about him was designed to intimidate. Keep going. Last night, he called me into his office after my shift. Said he wanted to discuss my career opportunities. The air quotes were sharp with sarcasm. When I got there, he offered me a special position. Private parties, exclusive clients, triple the pay. When I said no, he got angry. Said I should be grateful. That girls like me foreign, African, vulnerable. We didn't get to say no to men like him. Min-jae's hands curled into fists, but he kept his voice level. That's when he grabbed you. He said I needed to understand my place. That soul wasn't Lagos, and here I was nothing without the right protection. Her voice shook. He grabbed both my wrists, slammed me against his desk. Told me I had until next week to reconsider, or he'd call his immigration contact and have my visa revoked. Said I'd be deported before I could pack my bags. Did he touch you anywhere else? No. One of the bartenders knocked on the door, interrupted. Park let me go, but he made it clear this wasn't over. She pulled her sleeves back down, hiding the evidence. I went home terrified. I can't go back to Nigeria, not yet. My father needs specialized treatment, and the money I send home is the only thing keeping him alive. But I also can't, her voice broke. I can't let Park touch me. I can't become whatever he wanted to make me. Min-jae stood, moved to his desk, and picked up his phone. He pulled up a contact, hit dial, and waited through 2 rings. Yunesio. Change of plans. I want Park Jae-sung alive. Functional. Able to understand what's happening to him. He paused, listening. No, not quick. I want him to feel every second of what comes next. And I want him to know exactly why it's happening. Zara's eyes went wide. Min-jae, what are you? He held up one finger, silencing her while he finished the call. Also, I need deep background on Park. Everything. His financials, his connections, every dirty deal he's ever made. If he's trafficking women, I want evidence. If he's bribing immigration officials, I want names. By tomorrow morning, I want enough to bury him so deep he'll never see daylight again. He listened for another moment. Good. And Yunesio? Send Ji-won to the penthouse. Miss Okonkwo is under our protection now. I want someone with her whenever I'm not here. He ended the call and turned back to Zara, who was staring at him like he'd just spoken in tongues. What did you just do? She asked, her voice climbing. You can't just. I can, and I did. Min-jae crossed back to her, crouched down so they were at eye level again. Listen to me carefully, Zara. Park Jae-sung made a critical error in judgment. He thought you were alone. Vulnerable. Someone he could threaten and abuse without consequences. But he was wrong. He reached out, gently pulled her sleeves back up to expose the bruises again. Because you're not alone anymore. You have me. And I promise you, by this time tomorrow, Park will wish he'd never learned your name. I don't want you to kill him, she whispered. I'm not going to kill him. Min-jae's smile was dark. I'm going to do something much worse. I'm going to destroy everything he's built, expose every crime he's committed, and make sure every person in Seoul's underworld knows what happens when you touch something that belongs to me. Death would be mercy. He's not getting mercy. The word hung between them like a live wire. Belongs. Zara pushed to her feet, and for the first time since Min-jae had met her, anger overrode fear in her expression. I don't belong to anyone. Not to Park, not to you, not to any man who thinks he can just claim me because someone hurt you and I'm going to make it stop? Min-jae rose smoothly, matching her energy with his own controlled intensity. Say it, Zara. Finish that sentence. Because what? Because I saw you were in danger and decided to do something about it? Because I have the power to protect you and I'm choosing to use it. Because you want something from me. The words exploded out of her, raw and honest. Men like you don't help women like me without expecting something in return. So just tell me what it is. Tell me what you really want, so I can decide if it's better or worse than what Park was offering. The accusation should have angered him. Should have triggered that cold rage that made him dangerous. Instead, it made something in his chest crack open. Because she wasn't wrong to be suspicious. In her position, he would be too. Hell, he'd been the bastard son traded like currency, used as a pawn in his father's games before being discarded. He understood transactional relationships. Understood that nothing came free. But this, what he felt looking at her, what had been building over 9 days of morning coffees and careful conversations, this wasn't about transactions. You want to know what I want? He moved closer, and this time when she backed up, her shoulders hit the window. 43 stories of nothing but glass and Seoul's glittering lights behind her. I want you to stop flinching when someone raises their voice. I want you to walk through this city without looking over your shoulder. I want whoever taught you that protection comes with a price to be wrong for once in your life. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. Min-jae braced one hand on the window beside her head, not caging her in but close enough that she couldn't avoid him. I want you safe. I want you here. And yes, Zara, I want you. I've wanted you since day 3 when you reorganized my entire kitchen and then argued with me about the proper way to make Nigerian jollof rice versus Korean bibimbap. I've wanted you since I realized you see me, not Kang Min-jae the criminal, not the bastard son, not the monster people whisper about, just me. Her breath hitched. You don't even know me. I know you sing Burna Boy under your breath when you think no one's listening. I know you video call your father every Sunday at exactly 8 a.m. Lagos time, and you always cry after, but you do it in the bathroom so no one sees. I know you read medical journals on your phone during breaks because you were studying to be a nurse before you had to drop out to help your family. He paused. I know you take your tea with too much sugar and no milk, that you're allergic to shellfish, and that you have a scar on your left shoulder from a car accident when you were 16. Zara's eyes had gone wide. How do you? Because I pay attention to you. Because in 9 days, you've become the most interesting part of my carefully controlled life. Because I'm a criminal who runs half of Seoul's underground, and somehow you make me want to be better than that. His voice dropped lower. So yes, I want you. But not the way Park wanted you. Not as something to own or use or break. I want you whole. Safe. Happy. And if that means the only way you're comfortable around me is as your employer, then I'll live with that. But I won't live with someone hurting you and walking away unscathed. She stared at him, and he watched emotions war across her face. Disbelief. Hope. Fear. Desire that she was trying hard to suppress. Her hand came up slowly, hesitantly, and pressed against his chest. Not pushing away. Just touching. Feeling his heartbeat. You're really not going to ask for anything in return? Her voice was barely audible. I'm going to ask for one thing. He covered her hand with his, held it against his heart. Stay. Work for me. Live in the guest suite here where I know you're safe. Let me handle Park and anyone else who thinks they can threaten you. That's all I'm asking. The rest, whatever happens between us, that's your choice. Your timeline. Your terms. And if I say nothing happens between us? If I just want the job and the protection and nothing else? It would kill him. But he'd survive it. Then that's what you get. I don't force anything, Zara. Not loyalty, not affection, and definitely not this. He pulled back, giving her space. But I meant what I said. You're under my protection now. That doesn't come with strings. It comes with consequences for anyone stupid enough to test it. She studied him for a long moment, and Min-jae forced himself to wait. To let her think. To give her the choice Park had tried to steal. Finally, she said, okay. Okay, I'll stay. I'll work for you. She took a shaky breath. I'll trust you. But Min-jae, if you're lying to me, if this is some elaborate game, it's not. He said it with absolute conviction. And you'll see that. Starting tonight when I handle Park. You want to know what I'm going to do to him? I'll show you. I'll take you with me. What? She blinked. You want me to watch you, beat him up? Torture him? No. I want you to watch me dismantle his entire operation without laying a finger on him. Min-jae pulled out his phone, checked the time. It's 9 p.m. By midnight, Park Jae-sung will lose everything. His club, his connections, his freedom. And you're going to see exactly how I operate. How I protect what's mine without becoming the monster people think I am. I don't understand. You will. He moved his desk, pressed the intercom. Yunesio, bring the car around. And tell Ji-won to prepare a briefing packet. We're going to Lux. He glanced at Zara. You might want to change into something less conspicuous than a housekeeper's uniform. There's clothes in the guest suite, all sizes. Help yourself. Min-jae, I don't think. Zara. He turned to face her fully. You said you'd trust me. So trust me. What I'm about to show you, it's important. Because if you're going to be part of my life, you need to understand how I operate. What I'm capable of. What I'm willing to do for people under my protection. He paused. And you need to see that I keep my promises. All of them. 20 minutes later, Zara emerged from the guest suite wearing black jeans, a dark sweater, and a leather jacket that fit her perfectly. She'd let her hair down, and Min-jae had to physically stop himself from staring. She looked different out of the uniform. Stronger. More herself. The clothes fit, she said, a question in her tone. I had them brought in yesterday. At her sharp look, he shrugged. I was already planning to offer you the live-in position. The bruises just accelerated the timeline. You're either very confident or very arrogant. Both. He gestured to the private elevator. Shall we? The ride down was silent, tension crackling between them like static electricity. Zara kept touching her wrists, a nervous habit that made Min-jae's jaw tighten. Every time she did it, he was reminded of why they were doing this. Why Park needed to learn this lesson. Unicio was waiting by the car, a black Genesis G90 with tinted windows and plates that told anyone who mattered exactly who they were dealing with. She was in her early 30s, ex-military, and had been Min-jae's head of security for 5 years. Nothing rattled her. "Boss." She nodded at Min-jae, then turned sharp eyes to Zara. "Miss Okonkwo. I'm Unicio. I'll be coordinating your security detail moving forward." "Security detail," Zara repeated faintly. "This is insane." "This is necessary," Min-jae corrected, guiding her into the back seat. He slid in beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Unicio status?" "Isabella's already in Park Systems. His financials are a mess. Money laundering, tax evasion, payments to immigration officials, and evidence of human trafficking. We've got bank transfers, emails, everything we need." Unicio's smile was sharp as she drove. "The prosecutor's office will have an anonymous package by morning. Very detailed. Very damning." "Good." "And Park himself? Currently in his office at Lux. Alone. We've made sure of it." Zara turned to Min-jae. "You're turning him over to the police?" "Better." Min-jae pulled out a tablet, handed it to her. "I'm turning him over to the media, the prosecutors, his competitors, and every woman he's ever threatened. By tomorrow, Park Jae-sung won't just be arrested. He'll be ruined. His reputation destroyed, his connections severed, his empire dismantled. And everyone will know why, because he made the mistake of hurting someone under my protection." The tablet screen showed a website, already designed and ready to launch. Park's face front and center, with the headline, "The Truth About Lux, Trafficking, Abuse, and Corruption." Beneath it, testimony from dozens of women. Photos. Evidence. All documented, all verified, all devastating. "How did you?" Zara's voice cracked. "This would take weeks to compile." "I've had people watching Park for months," Min-jae admitted. "He's been on my radar as someone who needed handling. Your situation just moved up the timeline and gave me personal motivation." He met her eyes. "I told you, I protect what's mine. And I'm very, very thorough about it." The car slid through Seoul's nighttime streets like a predator. Neon signs blurred past, Hangul characters burning bright against the darkness, advertising everything from fried chicken to luxury karaoke rooms. Itaewon rose ahead of them, the neighborhood where cultures collided and rules bent just enough for men like Park to thrive. Zara hadn't stopped staring at the tablet. Min-jae watched her scroll through testimony after testimony. Women from Nigeria, the Philippines, Thailand, Russia. All telling variations of the same story. Promises of legitimate work. Threats when they refused special arrangements. Bruises that looked too much like hers. "There are so many," she whispered. How did no one stop him? Because the people who could stop him were the ones he was paying. Min-jae's voice was cold. Immigration officials who looked the other way. Cops who took envelopes full of cash to lose reports. Low-level prosecutors more interested in their conviction rates than actual justice. Park built his operation on the assumption that foreign workers are invisible, that no one cares what happens to them. But you do. I do now. He took the tablet from her, closed it. My mother was foreign. Ethiopian. She came to Seoul in the 90s thinking she'd found love with a powerful man. Instead, she found out she was a secret. A shame. Something to hide. His jaw tightened. She died when I was 12. Complications from pneumonia she couldn't afford to treat because my father's family made sure she had no access to proper health care. They wanted her gone. Invisible. Just like Park wants women like you to be. Zara's hand found his in the darkness of the car. Squeezed gently. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be ready. He squeezed back. Because what you're about to see, this is who I am, Zara. This is how I operate. And if it scares you, if it makes you want to run, I'll understand. But I won't apologize for it. The car pulled up 3 blocks from Lux. Unicio cut the engine, turned to face them. We've got eyes on all entrances. Park's still in his office. Security is light, 2 bouncers on the main entrance, 1 on the back. They're on our payroll as of an hour ago. Good. Min-jae opened his door, then paused. Zara, last chance. You can wait in the car. You don't have to see this. She looked at him, and something had shifted in her expression. The fear was still there, but it was wrapped in determination now. In anger. He grabbed me. Threatened me. Made me feel small and powerless and disposable. So no, I'm not waiting in the car. I want to watch him fall. Pride surged through Min-jae's chest. That's my girl. The words slipped out before he could stop them, possessive and warm. Zara's eyes widened, but she didn't correct him. Didn't pull away. Just climbed out of the car with her chin raised and her shoulders back. They walked to Lux like they owned the street. Because in many ways, Min-jae did. His empire wasn't built on territory in the traditional sense. It was built on information, on leverage, on knowing exactly which strings to pull to make Seoul's underworld dance to his tune. Every third business in Itaewon owed him favors. Every fifth cop had taken his money at some point. And everyone knew that crossing Kang Min-jae was a mistake you only made once. The bouncers saw him coming and simply stepped aside. Smart men. Inside, Lux was everything he expected, overwrought luxury attempting to mask a fundamentally seedy operation. Crystal chandeliers hung over leather booths where men in expensive suits paid for overpriced bottles and the company of women who smiled with dead eyes. K-pop pounded through speakers. Strobe lights painted everything in shades of purple and blue. Zara's hand found his arm, gripped tight. He covered it with his own. Stay close. They cut through the crowd, and Min-jae felt the moment people recognized him. Conversations died. Eyes tracked their movement with the wariness of prey animals spotting an apex predator. Good. Let them watch. Let them see what happened when you touched what was his. Park's office was on the second floor, access through a door marked private that Unicio opened with a keycard she'd acquired through means Min-jae didn't need explained. The hallway beyond was quieter, insulated from the club's noise. Expensive art on the walls. Thick carpet muffling their footsteps. He's trying so hard to be legitimate, Zara murmured. All this, it's theater. Everything's theater. Min-jae stopped outside Park's door. The difference between men like him and men like me is that I know I'm performing. He actually believes his own performance. He looked at her. Ready? She nodded. Min-jae didn't knock. He opened the door like he owned the place, because by morning, in every way that mattered, he would. Park Jae-sung sat behind an oversized mahogany desk, papers spread before him, phone pressed to his ear. He was younger than Min-jae expected, mid-30s, good-looking in a generic way, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The kind of man who'd learned early that his looks and connections could get him anything he wanted. He looked up at the intrusion, annoyance flashing across his face. Then he saw Min-jae, and the annoyance became something else. Recognition. Calculation. Fear trying to hide behind bravado. I'll call you back. Park ended his call slowly, standing. His eyes slid from Min-jae to Zara, and recognition flared there too. His gaze dropped to her wrists, and something ugly twisted his smile. Mr. Kong. This is unexpected. If you'd called ahead, I would have. Shut up. Min-jae's voice was pleasant. Conversational. The tone that made Park's smile falter. Sit down. Put your hands on the desk where I can see them. And listen very carefully, because I'm only going to explain this once. Park sat. Slowly. I don't know what this is about, but... I said shut up. Min-jae moved into the room, positioned himself where he could see both Park and the door. Zara stayed near the entrance, arms crossed, watching. 3 days ago, you called Miss Okonkwo into this office. You offered her a position that had nothing to do with serving drinks. When she refused, you grabbed her hard enough to leave bruises. Then you threatened to have her deported. Park's face went carefully blank. I don't know what she told you, but she didn't tell me anything at first. She was too scared. Because you're good at making women scared, aren't you, Park? It's your specialty. Finding vulnerable foreign workers, threatening their visa status, using their fear of deportation to make them compliant. Min-jae pulled out his phone, pulled up the website. You've been doing it for years. 23 women that we know of. Probably more. You can't prove. I can prove everything. Min-jae set the phone on the desk, turned it so Park could see the screen. Watched the color drain from his face as he scrolled through the evidence. Bank transfers to immigration officials. Emails coordinating visa revocations. Text messages arranging private parties where these women were sold like commodities. Security footage from your office showing you assaulting employees. And testimony. So much testimony. Park's hands were shaking now. Where did you get this? This is illegal, says the man running a trafficking operation. Min-jae's laugh was cold. You're going to lecture me about legality? That's rich. But here's the thing, Park. I don't care about legal. I care about justice. And tonight, you're getting both. He pulled up another screen, a news website, the article ready to publish. Park's face in the headline photo, looking smug at some charity event. The hypocrisy was perfect. At midnight, Min-jae checked his watch. In about 15 minutes, this goes live. Every major news outlet in Seoul gets a copy. The prosecutor's office gets a very detailed file. Your immigration contacts get notified that they're under investigation. And your business partners get informed that associating with you is now a liability they can't afford. You can't do this. Park stood, and there was real panic in his voice now. I have friends. Connections. People who will do nothing, Min-jae interrupted. Because your connections are insects compared to mine. Because the evidence is ironclad. Because by tomorrow morning, you'll be trending on every social media platform as the monster you actually are. He leaned forward, braced his hands on the desk. And because everyone in this city will know that you made one critical mistake, you touched someone under my protection. Park's eyes slid to Zara, and Min-jae watched him do the math. Watched him realize exactly how badly he'd miscalculated. She's just a maid, Park said, and it was the wrong thing to say. Min-jae moved fast. One moment he was across the desk, the next he had Park by the throat, slammed against the wall hard enough to rattle the expensive art. Not choking him, just holding him, making a point. She is mine, Min-jae said quietly. My employee. Under my protection. And you put your hands on her like she was nothing. Like she didn't matter. Like there wouldn't be consequences. He tightened his grip fractionally. So here are your consequences, Park. You're going to prison. Not for a few months, for years. And everyone you ever threatened, every woman you ever hurt, they're going to watch you fall and know they're safe now. Please. The word came out strangled. Please, I'll do anything. Money, information, whatever you want. I want you to understand something. Min-jae released him, stepped back. Park slumped against the wall, gasping. You thought foreign workers were invisible. That they didn't matter because they had no power, no protection, no one to advocate for them. But you were wrong. They have me now. And I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt them. He turned to Zara, held out his hand. She crossed the room without hesitation, placed her hand in his. The trust in that gesture made something warm unfurl in his chest. Look at her, Min-jae ordered Park. Look at the woman you tried to break. Park looked. And Zara stared back at him with her chin raised and fire in her eyes. No fear now. Just anger. Just strength. I want you to remember this moment, Zara said, her voice steady. Because this is what it looks like when invisible people become visible. When vulnerable becomes protected. When you miscalculate so badly that everything you built collapses. Min-jae's phone buzzed. Midnight. He checked the screen, saw confirmation that the website had gone live. That the emails had been sent. That Park's carefully constructed world was already beginning to crumble. It's done, he said softly. By morning, you'll be front-page news. The prosecutors will have everything they need. And everyone will know what you are. Park Jae-sung slid down the wall, his expensive suit crumpling around him like discarded paper. The transformation was almost poetic, from predator to prey in the space of 15 minutes. His phone started buzzing on the desk. Then again. And again. The sound multiplied as news spread, as people who'd taken his calls for years suddenly wanted distance. Answer it, Min-jae said coldly. Let them tell you what's happening to your empire in real time. Park's hand shook as he reached for the phone. He looked at the screen and whatever he saw there made his face go gray. It's the Deputy Director of Immigration. Park's voice cracked. He's terminating our arrangement. Effective immediately. Good. Min-jae felt Zara's hand tighten in his. That's just the first one. Watch. Over the next 10 minutes, they watched Park's world disintegrate. Phone call after phone call. His lawyer dropping him as a client. His business partners severing ties. A text from his landlord about emergency lease termination. The club's liquor license being suspended pending investigation. His bank accounts frozen by Financial Crimes Unit. And through it all, Min-jae stood there with Zara, making sure Park saw them together. Making sure he understood exactly what his arrogance had cost him. You destroyed me, Park finally whispered, phone falling from his nerveless fingers. Over a maid. You destroyed everything I built over a fucking maid. The words had barely left his mouth when Min-jae moved. Not to hit him, he'd promised Zara no direct violence. But his presence alone was enough to make Park flinch back, protective arms coming up too late. Her name is Zara Okonkwo, Min-jae said, voice soft and absolutely lethal. And she's worth 1,000 of you. She's worth this entire rotten club and every dirty deal you've made. So yes, I destroyed you over her. And I'd do it again. I'd do it for any woman you've ever touched, any person you've ever threatened. Because men like you? You only exist because people like me allow it. And I just decided to stop allowing it. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Yunesio's voice crackled through Min-jae's earpiece. Boss, police are 2 minutes out. We should move. Min-jae nodded, started to turn, then paused. Looked back at Park one final time. The women you trafficked? I've arranged protection for all of them. New visas, legitimate work, counseling. Everything you should have provided but didn't because you saw them as products instead of people. They're rebuilding their lives now. And every time they succeed, every time they smile or feel safe or sleep without nightmares, that's another piece of you erased from the world. He guided Zara toward the door, then stopped in the doorway. Oh, and Park? In prison, you should probably avoid mentioning that you worked with trafficked women. Inmates have very strong opinions about that sort of thing. Even the ones I don't pay to make your life difficult. They left him there, crumpled and broken, as the sirens grew deafening. The ride back to the penthouse was quiet. Zara stared out the window at Seoul's glittering lights, processing everything she'd witnessed. Min-jae didn't push, just kept her hand in his, thumb brushing across her knuckles in a rhythm that was probably more for his comfort than hers. Finally, as they pulled into his building's private garage, she spoke. You're terrifying. I know. But you're also, she turned to face him, and her eyes were wet with unshed tears. You're the first person who's ever fought for me like that. Who's ever made me feel like I mattered enough to burn someone's world down for. You do matter. Min-jae reached up, caught a tear that escaped with his thumb. You matter more than you know. Why? The question was raw. Why me? You could have anyone. Women who are from your world, who understand it, who aren't just. Just what? Smart? Brave? Beautiful enough to make me rethink every rule I've ever made about keeping distance. He shifted closer, and the car suddenly felt very small. Zara, I've spent 15 years building walls. Keeping people at arm's length because getting close meant vulnerability and vulnerability meant weakness. But you walked into my penthouse 9 days ago and somehow, without trying, you slipped past every defense I had. That's insane. Probably. His smile was soft, genuine. But when I saw those bruises, when I realized someone had hurt you and you'd been carrying that fear alone, something in me just decided. You were mine to protect. Mine to care for. And, if you'll let me, mine too. To what? Her voice was barely a whisper. To love. The word came out rough, unpracticed. Min-jae wasn't a man who said things like that easily. But sitting here with her, with souls sprawled beneath them, and the wreckage of Park's empire fresh in their wake, it felt right. True. If you'll let me. On your timeline, at your pace. No pressure, no expectations. Just let me prove that not all powerful men are monsters. That protection doesn't have to come with a price. That you can be safe and cherished and free all at once. Zara stared at him, tears flowing freely now. You barely know me. Then let me know you better. Stay in my guest suite. Work for me. Let me show you Seoul beyond the clubs and the fear. Let me introduce you to my mother's favorite Ethiopian restaurant in Dongdaemun. Let me teach you Korean beyond the curse words. He stopped, emotion roughening his voice. Let me prove I'm worth your trust. You just destroyed a man's entire life for me. I destroyed a predator who'd hurt 23 women that we know of. You were the catalyst, but this was always coming for Park. Min-jae cupped her face gently. But yes, knowing he'd touched you made it personal. Made it urgent. Made it satisfying in a way that scares me a little because I'm realizing there's almost nothing I wouldn't do to keep you safe. That's a lot of power to give someone. Then use it wisely. He smiled. Keep me honest. Call me out when I go too far. Be the conscience I sometimes forget I have. But stay. Please, Zara. Stay. She searched his face for a long moment, and Min-jae held his breath. This woman who'd survived immigration, abuse, loss, loneliness, she was stronger than she knew. braver than she believed. And he wanted nothing more than to spend however long she'd let him proving that to her. Okay, she whispered finally. I'll stay. But Min-jae, if you ever lie to me, if you ever make me regret this trust, I won't. He said it with absolute conviction. I've spent my life being lied to, betrayed by people who should have protected me. I won't do that to you. I won't become what I hate. She kissed him then, soft and tentative and tasting like tears and hope. Min-jae froze for a heartbeat, then kissed her back with 15 years of loneliness and 9 days of wanting and a future full of possibilities he hadn't let himself imagine until now. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Zara laughed shakily. This is crazy. Completely insane, Min-jae agreed. You're a Nigerian woman who came to Seoul to escape poverty. I'm a half-Ethiopian bastard who built a criminal empire out of spite. On paper, we make no sense. But I've never felt more certain about anything in my life. He pressed his forehead to hers. You're my light in a world I've kept deliberately dark. And I'm going to spend every day earning the right to keep you in it. 3 months later, Min-jae stood in his penthouse watching Zara prepare Nigerian jollof rice in his kitchen while arguing passionately with his chef about the correct ratio of tomatoes to peppers. She wore one of his shirts and nothing else, her natural hair free and wild, laughter in her voice. The bruises had faded weeks ago. The fear had taken longer, but it was fading too. Park Jae-sung was serving 15 years for trafficking, corruption, and assault. 23 women had been given new starts. Immigration reform was being debated in the National Assembly, sparked by the scandal. And Seoul's underworld had learned a valuable lesson about what happened when you touched something Kang Min-jae had decided to protect. Zara looked up, caught him staring, and smiled. Stop lurking and come help me. Your chef thinks he knows everything. I do know everything, Chef Kim protested. You know Korean food? Zara shot back. This is Nigerian food. There's a difference. Min-jae crossed the kitchen, wrapped his arms around her from behind, and pressed a kiss to her temple. She leaned back into him without hesitation, trust evident in the gesture. His phone buzzed. A message from UNESCO. Asterisk Park tried to file an appeal. Judge denied it. He's done. Asterisk. Good. Min-jae deleted the message and pulled Zara closer. What was that? She asked. Nothing important. He turned her to face him. Just confirmation that you're safe. That we're safe. That everything I promised you came true. She cupped his face, and the love in her eyes still surprised him. Still felt unearned. But he was learning to accept it. To believe he deserved it. My dangerous man, she murmured. My protector. Yours, he finished. However you want me. For as long as you'll have me. That might be a very long time. Good. Min-jae kissed her, slow and deep and full of promises he intended to keep. Because I'm not letting you go. Ever. Outside, Seoul sparkled in the evening light. Inside, two people who should never have found each other built something neither had believed possible, a home. A partnership. A love that had started with bruises and fear and had transformed into something fierce and unbreakable. And in the shadows of the city, everyone who'd watched Kang Min-jae destroy Park Jae-sung learned a simple truth. The most dangerous man in Seoul had found something worth protecting. And God help anyone who tried to take it from him. Zara laughed as Chef Kim finally admitted defeat on the jollof rice debate. Min-jae held her close and thought about his mother, how she would have loved this woman, how she would have been proud of the man he'd become despite everything. He'd started as the unwanted son, the bastard, the invisible one. But Zara saw him, chose him, loved him. And for that, he'd burn down the entire city if necessary. Fortunately, one destroyed predator had been enough. For now, the end. If you enjoyed this story of how Seoul's most dangerous protector found his match in a brave Nigerian woman, please subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us create more stories about love that conquers fear, protection that doesn't demand a price, and justice that comes from the most unexpected places. Thank you for being part of this journey.